The championship 4 is set for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Not only do we know who are the 4 drivers that will be racing for the championship next weekend at Phoenix, but Harrison Burton makes history for not only himself, but for the Burton family. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. My name is Jett Krause. We are going to review today's Draft Top 250 from the Martinsville Speedway, the penultimate race of the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Now, heading into this race, Chase Briscoe was the only driver that was safe. He won 2 weeks ago at Kansas. Even Austin Cindric was in somewhat, don't want to say safe position, but he was in, let's just say he wasn't completely out of the woods just yet. Really, the battle was going to be between drivers like Allgaier, Haley, Jones, and Chastain, as well as Gragson. Now, for a race at Martinsville, there wasn't really that much in terms of big moments, but it was just really good racing all around. Obviously, we're going to go over some things that took place during the race, but keep in mind, it's a very short list of moments, but the racing as a whole was just good. So stage 1, Austin Cindric, who started on pole, he led majority of stage 1, which was expected. Noah Gragson then came along, and he was also contending for the lead, which also was not expected. He is a former winner at Martinsville. He has run good at the Paper Clip during his times in the Truck Series, so that was not surprising. What was surprising was the third driver that was in contention, Harrison Burton in the 20 car. Now, there are 3 cautions in stage 1. All of them took place at the middle part of the pack, really. Didn't really affect any of the drivers. It was just sort of being and banging, cars spinning out, and then being able to continue on. And like I said, Cindric led majority of stage 1. Well, when a restart came out with 16 laps to go, Noah Gragson on the outside was able to get by Cindric, and then he had to hold off a hard-charging Harrison Burton, who was starting to come to form and be in contention for the race win. We will talk about that later on. He was already all over the backbone of Noah Gragson. Those two have a bit of history with each other that dates a few weeks ago, or actually months ago, at Kentucky. I'm pretty sure Burton still remembers that. But again, it was a really good, but it was still a really clean battle. Gragson was able to hold off Harrison Burton to win stage 1, which is important because Gragson needs as many stage points as possible in order to make up for the ground he lost 2 weeks ago at Kansas. So you had Gragson winning the stage. Second place was Harrison Burton. Third was Austin Cindric. Fourth, Ross Chastain. Behind him is his teammate Justin Haley. Sixth place, AJ Allmendinger. Allmendinger was back, 36, 37, and he drove his way all the way up into the top 10. Allmendinger had a really, really fast race car. It was very quick to see him be in the top 10 already in stage 1. I expected him to be somewhere in the top 10, maybe halfway into stage 2. Jones 7th, Allgaier 8th, Michael Annett 9th, and Chase Briscoe in 10th place. Stage 2 started out exactly the same. You had the same contenders of Gragson and Cindric out in front. Only this time when stage 2 actually began, JJ Yeley was on the front row. He stayed out during that stage 1 pit stop cycle. So he was out in front, but very quickly after around 5 or 6 laps, Cindric and Gragson took over. Then on lap 15 on stage 2, a 2 to 3 car incident took place in turn 3, which caused for dirt to just go all over the racetrack, which caused a red flag. It wasn't that long a red flag, but it was still an incident took place. Surprisingly, again, for a race at Martinsville, and for what took place yesterday in the Truck Series, it was a surprisingly calm race. If I'm not mistaken, that would be the one and only big major incident involving multiple cars. Of course, that wouldn't be the final caution, but in terms of actual drivers being involved, it was surprisingly tame. So when the restart came back out, Gragson again picked the high side lane, and his car was just so good on restarts, especially on the outside lane. He was able to just get the drive off the corner, and he did that with Harrison Burton and was able to take the lead from Burton. But not that long after, literally maybe a lap or 2 after, here comes Burton fighting back on the inside, and he's able to get side by side with Gragson, and he passes him for the lead. And then you throw in Ross Chastain into the mix. Now, Chastain was one of the drivers that didn't need to win the race, but he needed to score some points, and he flexed some muscle in this race, especially near the end of stage number 2. Got up to the back bumper of Harrison Burton and passed him with 29 laps to go. Then with 15 laps to go in the stage, Matt Mills in the 5 Toyota car catches on fire right in front of Ross Chastain. It was a pretty scary moment both for Mills and for Chastain, as they were literally nose to tail. No other cars were damaged. This will lead to about a 5 or 6 lap shootout where Chastain would win stage number 2. Second place would be Noah Gragson, third Justin Haley, fourth Justin Allgaier, fifth place is Austin Cindric, Brandon Jones in 6th, Brett Moffitt in 7th, AJ Allmendinger in 8th, Harrison Burton in 9th, and Timmy Hill nice job for him in stage number 2. He scores a top 10 finish in that stage. Now, the reason why Harrison Burton was around the 8th or 9th position was because he pitted before that restart came out and the 6-lap shootout took place. The other drivers like Chastain, like Gragson, like Allgaier, like Haley, they all stayed out. So when stage 3 began, you saw 7 of the 8 playoff drivers in the middle of the pack. I mean, this was a recipe for disaster. You have this many playoff cars together with so many cars around you, it's a recipe for disaster. And it nearly became just that. Coming off of turn number 4, Justin Allgaier was in the middle of a 3-wide sandwich, makes contact with the 17 car J.J. Yeley. Entering turn number 1, Yeley tries to slide back right behind Allgaier, but Justin Haley's nose is already there, comes down, make contact, Yeley spins. Haley, he obviously hits Yeley, it's like a tongue twister. Haley hits Yeley, but Haley doesn't suffer that much damage for it to have a major effect. That's a tongue twister. Haley. Alright. But back up front, when the restart came out, AJ Allmendinger not only was able to clear Harrison Burton, but then he started to drive away, and it looked like he could have a really good shot at winning this race. But back up front, after that crash took place, it was AJ Allmendinger and Harrison Burton. Allmendinger got out to a lead and drove away. This was because Harrison's cousin, Jeb Burton, they were battling hard each other side by side. Again, clean racing, but still very, very hard racing for second place. That allowed Allmendinger to get away. But as soon as Harrison Burton, was able to clear Jeb, Harrison just chomped away at Allmendinger's lead, and it was right up to his back bumper with 75 laps to go. A caution would take place during that long green flag run. Harrison Burton was the first one off of pit road. And once again, on a restart, Burton and Allmendinger were side by side for a few laps. Allmendinger is able to clear Burton, and Allmendinger drives away. And at this point, to me, at least in my perspective, I thought Allmendinger has a really, really fast car. And with how little cautions there have been in this race, I thought for sure Allmendinger was going to drive away with this thing. But in typical NASCAR fashion, it is not over until it's over. 52 laps to go. Allmendinger, he has a big lead on Harrison Burton. He reports he has a left rear tire flat on the 16 car. He has to come onto pit road, goes 2 laps down, and that virtually ends his day right on the spot. It was very shocking to see. Again, this is not uncommon though, because we saw in the truck race yesterday, 2 or 3 trucks also suffer left rear tire failures. Now, what could possibly have happened that caused Allmendinger's tire to go flat was because when Burton and Allmendinger were racing side by side, they made a bit of contact. I believe this was coming off of turn number 4. I don't have footage of it, but Burton and Allmendinger made a bit of contact side by side, and it looks like Burton's right side, his tailpipe, cut the left rear of Allmendinger's car. You know, whenever you make contact and you bump side by side, depending on where you hit, it could cause a car's tire to go flat right away. And it looks like that's exactly what happened. Allmendinger had the pit. That gives a lead to Harrison Burton. Caution comes out with 37 laps to go. Mike Snyder, the 21 car, spins in turn 3. And when pit stops took place, only 3 playoff drivers pitted: Ryan Sieg, Brandon Jones, and Chase Briscoe in the 98 car. And they're positioned around the middle of the pack, so they use this opportunities so that, let's say if they get fresh tires, they can be able to drive their way towards the front, because this was really their one and only shot at having somewhat of a chance at winning the race. So with 30 laps to go, Harrison Burton's on the inside. Justin Allgaier is now the new man on the outside in second place. Behind them is Noah Gragson. He's in third. Remember, he's a driver that needed to win the race in order to advance. And then you had Ross Chastain, who was running fourth, 10 points behind his teammate Justin Haley, who held the final spot to advance into Phoenix. And as the laps were starting to dwindle down, Haley's car was just starting to get worse and worse. He lost 6 spots during the final green flag run, which cut his lead from 10 to 4 points ahead. Now, luckily, he had Allmendinger behind him, which sort of kept him at bay. Allmendinger was sort of like the protector, like, hey, I'm not going to pass you. You know, just let's make it to the end. So Haley was lucky for that, because if Allmendinger was not there, more than likely Haley would have lost more spots. That was basically it. Burton drove away from Allgaier and Gragson. Not completely, but let's just say Allgaier knew there was no way he was going to be able to catch up to Burton. And Burton would go home with the win for the 4th time in his career and for the 4th time in 2020 in the Xfinity Series. And this is a very, very cool stat that NBC just played during the broadcast. Harrison Burton, becomes the youngest driver in Martinsville history to win a race, 20 years and 22 days. The previous record holder was his father, Jeff Burton, who was calling the race He held the previous record for being the youngest winner at Martinsville ever at, I think it was 23 years and I think 20-something days. I'm not sure exactly, but I thought that was a really cool stat. Then you even had, when Burton took the checker flag, you even had Jeff Burton, who again was on the broadcast, call in to Harrison Burton's radio to sort of congratulate him. And it was a cool father-son moment. It reminded me automatically to Ned Jarrett and Dale Jarrett. Obviously, the magnitude's not the same, like the Daytona 500 to an Xfinity race at Martinsville, but it still just, it made you feel good inside, which we need a lot of that in 2020 because we haven't getting very much feel-good moments. But yeah, Burton comes home with the win, led at 81 laps, the most laps out of anyone in that race. And now, with Martinsville done, we have one more race. Phoenix, next Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on NBCSN. And these are the 4 drivers that will contend for the Xfinity Series Championship. Ford drivers Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric, and Chevrolet drivers Justin Allgaier and Justin Haley. This, I'll be honest, Phoenix, that could be a really good equalizer for those guys. Allgaier has run pretty good there. Cindric is good. Briscoe's good. And don't count out Justin Haley. Who knows what could happen. This is it's kind of like similar to the Truck Series Championship 4. This is a pretty even 4 drivers to fight for the title. I still think the advantage might go towards more Briscoe or Cindric, but you cannot count out Allgaier and Haley. Who knows what they could bring into the table next Sunday, or next Saturday, I should say, at the desert. For the race in general, like I said, it was your typical Martinsville race. A lot of action, a lot of good, hard, clean racing, but not a lot of moments, which is good. A great race doesn't need to have a lot of moments, and this was a really, really good race. I really enjoyed it. This is just another reason, Martinsville, it is perfect. I think it's the perfect spot for the penultimate race to be a cutoff race in the round of 8. I think Martinsville is the perfect place to hold that spot. I cannot wait for the Cup race tomorrow. Don't forget, MDK Race Day, we preview the final race of the round of 8 for the NASCAR Cup Series. That will take place after the F1 race at Imola. I need to look up what time that is, but make sure you be on the lookout for that. Tell me your guys' thoughts on this race in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you not? But until next time, my name is JettMDK, and I'll see you guys next time.